Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Allahumma inna nastahdika li arshadi amrina warzuqna ilman yanfa'una. So last week we completed one division of hadith terminology, or one type of report, I should say, which is the report that is maqbool, the report that is accepted. And prior to speaking about reports that are accepted, we spoke about reports in another manner of division, which was the pathways which that report has reached us, or through which the report has reached us. So we can do a quick review. And just to aid you guys, it's easier when you break down the mustalahat according to these divisions and then just number the different terms that we cover. Okay, it makes it a little bit easier to kind of memorize the material. So for the first division, we said that what? It's based on how the report reaches us, the different pathways. Okay, so who can give me the terms for the different types of pathways?
There is ahad and mutawatir.
Right, there's ahad and there's mutawatir. The mutawatir is not the subject of ulum al-hadith. Okay, because when we talk about ulum al-hadith, we're talking about various types of verification processes and investigations related to the hadith. But when we talk about the mutawatir, just by its nature, tawatur doesn't require an investigation, because it results in certain knowledge, right? So we have al-mutawatir, which is a category of its own that technically is not included in the ulum al-hadith. And then we have al-ahad. And what are the different types of ahad? You do have maqbool and mardud. That's correct. But that's another type of division that we're going to come to a little bit later. Right now, what are the different types of ahad in terms of the pathways by which they reach us? I'll give you a clue. If we start with al-mutawatir, what is the fundamental basis of something being mutawatir?
Yeah, it has a large number of people.
Right.
Right.
The primary consideration is a mass of people, a mass of reporters are giving you this information. Okay, so we're looking at the number of people involved in transmitting the report, right?
Right.
So then what comes after the mutawatir?
Right. The ahad has a singular path, or it's whether it has one chain of narrators going all the way down. It goes back to one chain.
Yeah,
Whereas,
that's the least that you can have is one person. Okay, what is that? What is that called?
That's
where you have one person in a link in the chain. It's called al-gharib, the gharib, right?
Yeah, singular report. Yeah, al-gharib.
Okay, and what's above gharib when you have two people? The aziz. And then what comes after or what's above the aziz and below the mutawatir?
Mustafid al-mashhur.
The mashhur, right. And then some of the ulama call the mashhur the mustafid. Okay, so that's how we divide akhbar, reports, according to the number of transmitters involved in getting that report to us, right?
Right.
And that's one way of examining a chain of narration. And Brother Hussein, you mentioned al-maqbul wal-mardud, right? A hadith that is accepted and that is rejected. So for all of our lessons from the beginning of the term, we've been speaking about uh, the accepted so far, right? The maqbul. So, what are the different types of hadith that are maqbul?
عدل تام الضبط سند معلل and شاذ.
Well, you just gave me sort of a definition of the highest type of ahad hadith, which is what? Remember now we're looking for the terms.
I see.
It's called a hadithun sahih,
نعم
right?
صحيح.
A sound hadith, or you also see it translated as an authentic hadith, right? And you mentioned that it's what? نقل عدل تام الضبط متصل السند غير معلل ولا شاذ. Okay? After the sahih, what do we have? If a narrator's accuracy is not at the level of someone who narrates a sahih hadith, right? A sahih hadith, we have the top-notch narrators, okay? So let's say that a narrator is, moderately accurate, okay? He's not bad, but he's not excellent either. What type of hadith?
حسن.
That's called Hasan, right? So we have Sahih is Maqbul, Hasan is also Maqbul. Okay. Now, what if we have a number of uh, pathways for a Hasan hadith? Then what do we call it?
صحيح.
It's called Sahih, but with a qualification, which is what?
It'll be حسن صحيح.
No, it's Sahih, but the first type of Sahih that we mentioned is Sahih lidatihi. It's authentic in itself. But if we gather a bunch of Hasan narrations, pathways, then it's called Sahih, but it's not lidatihi. It's Sahih, and then what's the qualification?
Here I'm reading it says حسن لذاته and then حسن صحيح.
You have Sahih لغيره.
No.
Sahih لغيره. Okay? So it's Sahih, authentic, but due to another consideration. Okay? Not in and of itself. All right? And then we mentioned some other terms in the previous lesson that all pertain to where you have contradiction between the narrators. Okay, and the beautiful thing that we can get from studying these terms, particularly the terms that we covered last lesson, where we're talking about how to deal with narrators and their reports when there's contradiction between them, is you see that one, the ulama are very honest, intellectually honest, and also very meticulous in how they deal with the narrations. That's one. So it gives us confidence that when we're dealing with the Hadith corpus and looking at the judgments of the various muhaddithin, that we're dealing with something that really could not be more thorough than what it is, right? Um, so when we can be honest about human error, and that even, someone who's a righteous Muslim and even a good narrator of hadith, everyone is going to be subject to errors, right? They might not be accurate 100% of the time, okay? And that really was the subject of last lesson, and it was very important. Um, and as we kind of continue with the text, if we think about the material that was covered last lesson, it's a great segue into what we're going to venture into today, which is the hadith or the report, excuse me, that is mardud, okay? Because with last lesson, we spoke about contradictions and the various levels of contradiction and the ways that hadith narrators can contradict one another, and at what point an addition in a hadith would be acceptable or not. Okay, so you can see how the sheikh is ordering the text, right? So